Hi folks, Doc here. It's a beautiful day at Area 51. It was supposed to rain today and it didn't, and I like that. I like that a lot. As some of you are aware, I did a bit of a mud romp on the weekend there. Probably saw the videos, had a hell of a good time. And this is the first time I've had a chance to have a look at the tractor and go over the destruction since. I'm going to have to power wash the damn thing. It's pretty ugly, but I'll show you what kind of state it's in and give you an update on what I've done to it. Stay tuned. Okay, so there it is in all of its glory. I mean glory. Yeah, she got a little muddy. She got a lot muddy. Damn, that thing is hideous. Covered in crap. It was all shiny and purdy. Well, partially anyways. I still haven't finished the paint job, but man, look at that. That's just nasty. Is there a dash in there? Didn't think there was. Yeah, pretty crazy, eh? Pretty crazy. But I'll give you a little performance report. And that is that the tire combination I've got in this thing performed exceptionally well. The Carlisle Mud Wolves on the back and the eggs on the front, the pizza cutters, oh, it did very well. I had absolutely no problems with tractive force, you know, starting and stopping, moving, driving, and I had zero problems with steering. This thing was driving like it was on rails. Very, very happy with the performance. So, needless to say, I did lock the differential, and you guys are going to give me a hard time and say, how come you didn't do a lock video on the 633A roper that we know is in that thing? And the answer is, I'm gonna. But what I did was basically I came up with a quick solution that did involve, you know, a minor bit of welding. And basically it was just, it was a mad dash to get the damn thing ready for the mud romp on the weekend. It kicked my ass. I had a few things I wanted to do to it. And long story short, what I did was temporary. I do have a spare differential for this transaxle. And I am going to do a video on locking the 633 roper. In fact, I've got a couple of ideas. I'm probably going to do two. And that'll give you some options. Anyways. She is locked up, and I will be doing something about that to improve it. Now, the more astute amongst you will notice that belt. And you probably remember me mentioning at one point or another that I was going to hang the alternator in there. And that would be the alternator that I had on Mule 2. And that alternator is a Delco 12SI. It's an 85 amp unit. And basically what I did is I had to fashion a little bracket for it and hang a belt. You'll notice I don't have an upper bracket for it yet. I've got this thing to provide some belt tension, just basically a nut welded in place and a carriage bolt. And it's doing for the moment. I want to do an upper bracket, but I ran out of time. And it's going to take some engineering to get an upper bracket on there. As it was, as you can tell, it was a pretty tight squeeze under the hood. I think I've got maybe an inch from this upper mounting ear to the hood. And yeah, I've got probably about an inch in there. Anyways, tight squeeze. For those of you that are considering doing an alternator, I know there's been a lot of talk about the Delco one-wire alternator option, and all that is a 10SI or a 12SI with a one-wire regulator. And I just want you guys to know that you don't have to get the one-wire option. Wiring these things as a 3-wire is easy as hell, and it's actually better for the system to do the 3-wire. Arguably, it's cheaper too, because they're more common as a 3-wire option. And it's really, really simple. First off, you've got a big cable going from the big stud to your battery. It doesn't get any simple as that. It's any simpler than that. Now you could go to the battery stud on the starter relay, on the starter solenoid, or your isolator, or whatever you have. The simplest is big cable back to the battery positive. Now, you have, let me just adjust the camera here, two little terminals underneath there. And I know this is kind of a bad angle, but they're just spade terminals. Camera's not focusing. Give you something to focus on. Focus. Focus, damn it, focus. Anyways, you've got 2 terminals under there. And terminal number 1, which is the closest one to the battery stud, terminal number 1 is basically used to, how can I say this? Well, it actuates the system. It's kind of the trigger. It's the field wire. So what you do is you take terminal number 1 there, and I apologize for the lighting. I know I'm getting kind of washed out by the sun here, but terminal number 1, you run a wire to your dashboard. And in your dashboard, you set an idiot light, which I did here. It's a little muddy. So you wire terminal 1 to the idiot light. Can you even see in there? There we go, backside of the idiot light's just under my ignition switch there. So terminal 1 to the idiot light, and then the other idiot light terminal runs to your ignition switch to power that is on when the switch is on, right? So that terminal gets power when the switch is keyed on. So that's terminal 1. Terminal 1 goes to a dummy light and then to the key switch to power on. And that acts as your warning light. So if the alternator fails, the light stays on. And when alternator function is normal, the light is on when the ignition's on, the engine's not running. Start the engine, light goes out, all is well. Now, that leaves terminal number 2. And I'll get back around here. Terminal number 2 is the sensing wire. It's the system voltage sensing wire. And the simplest way to do this is just go straight from the big stud right to it. And that's all I've done here. I'll move the camera around a little bit. You can just see that I have a battery cable that allows me to do that. And all it is terminal number 2 right to the big stud. Now, in a full voltage sensing application, instead of going to that stud, like on a car or whatever, it would go to the main bus of the fuse box, or your central bus bar, central relay box, whatever the main power point is, and it would sense system voltage there, and that will give it the most accurate reading. In this particular case, given the fact that we don't have complicated circuitry on this tractor, that works just as well as just to go right to that stud. So there's your 3 wires, and that's how easy it is. This one to the battery. Terminal number 1 through a light to the key switch, and terminal number 2 right back to this stud. That's it. So you do not need a 1-wire alternator. I keep seeing guys talking about 1 wire, 1 wire, 1 wire. Don't need it. This is better anyways. So there you go. That's your little bit on the alternator. What else did I do to this thing in preparation for the mud romp? Well, as you can see, I fabbed up a pole. Basically a GoPro mast type of thing, and I made that out of 1-inch pipe and a piece of 1/2-inch square stock. This is the same 1/2-inch square stock that I did the dock locker 2.0 with, and I've got a few pieces of this kicking around. So that's nasty, isn't it? Look at all that mud. Anyways, yeah, it just goes to my framing there and up to this pole, and I just made this little bracket to fit the waterproof housing on my Contour Roam, and that's pretty much that. The other thing I did in preparation for that little exposition is a pulley swap. I'm kind of under the belief that, chugging through the mud, chugging and turning at slow speed is all fine and good, but to me anyways, the definition of mudding is blasting. You've got some wheel speed to clear the treads, you're throwing some rooster tails, you're flinging the brown stuff all over the place, and to me, folks, that's mudding. So I wanted a faster transport speed for this thing. And, I did want to fling some mud. I didn't purpose build it for this, but I did want to fling some mud. And so ultimately I ended up doing a pulley swap, and half of it I didn't actually plan on. So here's the deal. Underneath here, if I can get underneath here, you really can't see anything. Awesome. Alright, I'm just going to tuck you under here. You can see the bottom of the pulley. It doesn't show you much. That's fine, whatever. Anyways, I took out the factory pulley, and it is a tapered shaft, as we know, and I drilled out the spot welds, and I welded the old hub to a 6-inch pulley. And the plan was to get everything back together, get the transaxle in, head off to TSC, and get a new belt, because obviously, going down in size to a 6-inch on the transaxle means I'm going to need a new belt. Except I was working on this thing so late on Saturday that TSC was closing, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get a belt for it. And I had a 5-inch pulley on there, as you're probably aware, and there was too much slack in the belt, and I was thinking about just you know, tacking on another idler wheel to make it happen. Long story short, I looked over my part supply and I came up with this 7-inch pulley. And the 7-inch pulley didn't have a hub, so I cut the hub out of my 5-inch pulley, zapped it together, and sure as shite, I am able to use the factory belt with a 6 on the rear and a 7 up front on this thing. And all I had to do was adjust the idler pulley a little bit. There's the bolt for it. I know you can't see it, but there's a tensioner pulley in there, and you just loosen the bolt, slide it up and down, take up the slack in the belt. So anyways, it's working well. Factory belt, 7 up front, 6 in the rear, and I did do some belt guide stuff. As you can see, I just screwed some bolts into factory threaded bosses in the block here, and they were in a good place for it. They were in a perfect place for it. So they're just shoulder bolts, and the holes, actually, the threads were bonked out. I think they were supposed to be 3/8 16 thread, and I tried to thread a 3/8 bolt in either hole, and it wasn't grabbing. The corrosion, dirt, crap, whatever, the threads were shot. So I drilled out and re-tapped the holes for 1/2 13 and ran those bolts in there, and I ran a bolt into a hole in the transaxle that was already there. And those are my belt guides, because on my initial test run, the belt fell off a couple of times. I went, well, damn, I guess I got to do guides. So how fast does this pig go with a 7 on the front and a 6 on the rear? Well, the answer, according to a GPS app on my phone, is 16 miles an hour, or 25 kilometers an hour. And all things considered, that's nearly 3 times the speed of stock. I'll take it. That worked well. So folks, there's your update on Commando, its current state, what I did to it in preparation for the mud romp. And I'm going to keep you posted as the changes come, and there are some more changes coming, including locking the differential, you know, in a more dock appropriate way. And like I said, keep your eyes posted. I think I'm going to do 2 on the Roper 633, because I've got a couple of good usable ideas that are probably better than, you know, some of the standard, you know, most commonly seen methods. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching, sharing, and subscribing to Sprocket's Garage on YouTube. Until next time, take care of yourself.